We're live.
Yeah, we are live. So, hello everyone, everyone around the country. I mean, mostly viewers from India. It's a Friday evening, but a tough Friday evening due to the COVID situation across the country. With a lot of lockdowns around. Many of the states have announced a weekend curfew. Many of the states have also been going through a couple of weeks lockdown till the end of the month. First of all, a very tough moment, and a salute to the health warriors who are fighting it every day and night, saving those lives and getting those people going. So, Ian, thank you so much for coming back to this show. I think I remember it's been a year or so since we talked on the same, or rather 6-7 months since we talked on the same chat show. So, thank you. I hope you are doing good.
Yeah, it's great. It's great to be back, and of course, you guys have got my prayers for a safe recovery from this terrible situation. And it kind of seems strange to be talking about running and training and getting outside when these things are going on. But I think as long as we're careful the way we do it, then it's better to be fit and healthy than to sit around and not do much. But it's great to be back, and of course, it's exciting to chat about training.
Great. So, as Ian emphasized here, please be safe and responsible even while you are running. Running doesn't give you a license to go anywhere and do whatever you want. So, do it in a very responsible and safe way. Uh, Ian obviously is well known to a lot of Indian runners. He has a lot of trainees out here. Has been training and being been into running for decades now. Has a team of athletes going to the World Relay Championships, and I'm sure a few of them at least, would start off in Tokyo Olympics if it happens, and there's a high likelihood that it is going on. So that, I mean, Ian needs no introduction. But just jumping straight away into the topic, Ian, how safe is running in such times?
My personal opinion, the numbers that we're seeing in India at the moment are frightening. Mm-hmm. But when you look at the numbers in relation to the population as a whole, it's not dissimilar to what we were going through back in October, November last year. And as I shared with you some numbers earlier on, back in October, November, we were getting 60,000 positive cases a day. Mm-hmm. Against a population of 60 million. Mm-hmm. Now those numbers have gone down to about 2,000 a day. Mm-hmm. So there is light at the end of the tunnel. Sure. And in terms of deaths, we were around 1,500 a day, and yesterday it was less than 20. Mm-hmm. So in terms of safeness for training, it depends where you are. Sure. If you're living in a busy city and the streets are still full of people, then obviously the recommendation would not be to go out and run. Mm-hmm. If you're living in a slightly more rural area, or you have access to a park that's not overcrowded, then as long as you're careful, I don't see any problem with running. You know, I've been back in the UK for over a year, and I've not missed a day. Great. But even through the toughest of times, I was very careful about choosing my routes. So I was making sure, I'm fortunate, I live in a village and we're surrounded by farms and golf courses and a beach. So plenty of open space. Now, right. I know that's not the case in a lot of parts of India. Mm-hmm. But if you have a park that early in the morning or in the evening is a little bit quiet, then as long as you keep vigilant, and you make sure that if you're crossing somebody that you step to the side so you're not too close to them. Sure. I don't think there's any harm in doing 1 or 2 workouts a week outdoors.
Sure. So one of the key takeaways, Ian, from this point that you have made, if we need to tell the runners out here, is to make sure that you choose the path or where you're going to run very carefully. Try to be in a place where there is very minimal people around. It's always not possible. But even if there are a few people around, have a safe distance and make sure that is more important than your pace or speed. So I can just relate to when we train. I would always say that, for a moment, forget about the pace. Your safety is more important. So I think that should be the way one should look at it. And for the viewers, if you have any questions for Ian or for me, please do type in your comments on Facebook, where it is going live, or on YouTube. The questions will directly come to us, and we can obviously answer it for you. So taking off from the point, Ian said that in these tough conditions, do run, but do run responsibly. In such a situation, I think uh, running long distances, say marathons, half marathons, and especially training for them in such a situation becomes difficult, because typically your training plan uh, would involve a lot of longer runs, multiple runs through the week, which could be a problem in a populated country like India, where you don't get enough space around, unlike the UK where you come from. In those kind of situations, I think uh, a distance like a 5K uh, aptly sits in place, and that is going to be the core point of discussion uh, today. Uh, Ian, is there a trend in these COVID times that you see more people trying to do those 5Ks and 10Ks?
Absolutely. And in fact, at Running for Health, we've been focusing on shorter distances for the last few months. As you rightly say, if you're training for a marathon or a half marathon or a long distance race, you need to be out for a long time, doing a lot of long runs. And really, that's not very practical at the moment. But it is possible to do 5K training. If you're going to run a marathon, you need to be doing your 2-hour, 3-hour runs, 25, 30, 35 kilometers. If you're training for 5 kilometers, you can get away with a longest run of 8 or 10 kilometers, and maybe a couple of shorter, faster runs during the week. And as you were saying, Vijay, it's important to be vigilant. If you go into the park and there's some space, if you'd originally started out with a view to just jogging slowly and having an easy run, but you find that you've got some space, maybe there's a football field that's a little bit empty, then of course you can improvise and do some sprints and do some fast work.
Right.
But the 5K distance fits neatly in. You can get fit enough to run 5 kilometers, even running just a little bit 2 or 3 times a week, and supplementing that with other exercises like skipping, kettlebell, core training.
So one aspect that we talked about, Ian, is the time that we live in. Maybe shorter distances are better, right? But traditionally, I think 5K has also a place in your longer scheme of things. Typically, when you are wanting to be a good, a half marathoner or a full marathoner, a lot of coaches say, get back and get your 5K timings in place, right?
Yeah.
So how does that work? I mean, where does 5K sit in for a competitive athlete?
For competitive athletes, 5 and 10K are almost the holy grail. If somebody's aspiring to run fast at 21 or 42, they need to be fast at 5K. You're not going to be, if we look at the elite level, where typically they're going to be running 3 minutes per kilometer. If they can't run that pace or faster than that pace for 5K, they're never going to manage it for a full marathon.
Right.
So all of the top marathon runners like Kipchoge and Mo Farah, Bekele, all of these guys during their training cycle, they test themselves over shorter distance. They may even do multiples of 5 kilometers. Quite a favorite marathon training session is 4 by 5 kilometers with 3 minutes recovery. That's a typical Kenyan session. But to be able to run let's say under 2 hours 10 minutes for a full marathon, you need to be capable of running under 14 minutes for 5 kilometers. So all of these top guys dedicate quite a lot of time to doing training for 5K, because they know that gives them the differential when they move up to longer distances
Sure.
to be world class.
No, fantastic. I think that's a great insight, because I know that a lot of people who are watching this show are people who are aspiring to be very competitive when it comes to being an amateur runner, but want to really go on and on improving their times. So I think 5K is very essential there. But Ian, running for health is also an initiative that you have taken, not just to train the elite, but also for newcomers, right? And
Absolutely.
how does a 5K attract a newcomer?
You know, for somebody that's just getting into their fitness regime, 5 kilometers is a distance that's not scary. You know, if somebody's getting into fitness and they go and they join a running group and everybody's talking about 21 kilometers or 42 kilometers, that can be a bit daunting.
Hmm.
Whereas if you set your mind to 5 kilometers, most people can walk and jog for 5 kilometers.
Mm-hmm.
So you can start off very easily, mainly walking with a little bit of jogging in between. And gradually, as you get fitter, the walking reduces, the jogging and running increases. And before long, people can be covering that distance relatively easily. And, you know, for improvers, one of the biggest mistakes that a lot of recreational runners make
Mm-hmm.
is they dive into the full marathon and half marathon too early.
Mm-hmm.
They don't give themselves a chance to explore their potential at the shorter distances.
Right. Right.
And once people start to run regular full marathons, it's very hard to go back from that
Mm-hmm.
and get faster at shorter distances.
Mm.
And I've come across situations where people ask some of my trainees, why are you just doing all this short, fast running?
Mm-hmm.
Why aren't you doing long runs? Why aren't you going out and doing long repetitions? The answer's simple. Rome wasn't built in a day.
Mm.
So regardless of the age of the runner,
Sure.
if we have a plan, let's say, for example, somebody's aim is to run close to 3 hours for a full marathon.
Mm-hmm.
But at the moment, their 5 kilometer time is 26 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
They're never going to run 3 hours off that pace.
Yeah.
So we have to concentrate on bringing that pace down, the 5K time down, until we get under 20 minutes.
Sure.
And when we get into that range, then we can start to dream about converting that to the longer distance.
So I mean, very valid thing, Ian. I can take. I can tell you about my own experience. So, 2016, I think April in Paris marathon was the first time I did a sub 3. Not that I was expecting a sub 3 at that point of time, but when I look back, I had, for my first time in my life or in the running, a journey that I had started from 2012. I had done 19.45 seconds 1 month prior to that
Before the marathon.
3 hour run. So I think that run gave me a lot of confidence. The fact that I can actually run fast, I can run fast over a period of time, and probably that translated into what you said right now, that if you want to aspire for being a 3 hour kind of marathoner, you probably will have to cut down your 5K time to a reasonable limit, and that could be around 20 or around that kind of area.
Yeah.
So the next question, Ian, is a lot of runners. You talked about newbie runners, right? People who want to run a first 5K, right? Now, a lot of people feel whether it is okay to jog a little bit, walk a little bit, and then start the whole process of training or even actually running. So, is it even okay to walk during a 5K training or 5K actual distance?
Absolutely. You know, it depends on the individual. One of the things that we do at Running for Health, we don't put everybody in the same bracket. So we treat everybody as an individual. So we may get some young guy wants to join and they play soccer or cricket and they're reasonably fit. They can probably go and run a few kilometers without a great problem. Then we may get somebody wants to join us, and maybe they're a bit big, a bit heavy. They've not run for 20 years since they were at school. For that person, if you tell them go and run 5 kilometers, they're probably going to be calling an ambulance to follow them. So we have to be a bit sensible.
Sure.
And so for somebody who's a little bit unfit, we'll start off with brisk walking. And we have quite a few people on our programs now who've joined us in the last 6 or 8 months. And when they joined, they couldn't run for more than a couple of 100 meters.
Sure.
Now, because we've gradually built up from walking to then walking and jogging, then consistent running for 10, 15, 20 minutes, most of these people now can cover 10, 15 kilometers without a great deal of problem.
Sure.
Because it's all about the individual, and it's about tailoring the training plan to make it comfortable, but a little bit challenging.
Sure.
So there's no problem with people walking at all.
Great. So I think that's a very So that's a very key takeaway, because a lot of runners come up and ask that they see a lot of runners running for a long time, so they get daunted by the fact that how am I able to go and do a 5K? I think, as Coach Ian said, there's nothing wrong in walking. A mix of walking and jogging is perfectly okay, and you are no less a good runner than anybody else who's running. And eventually, I think for all of us, over a period of time, your walking becomes more of jogging, and more of jogging becomes more of running at some point in time. And that is how you become a better runner, a faster runner over a period of time, right?
We always say there's no such thing as a slow runner. A runner is a runner.
Correct.
When somebody makes that decision to improve their health and fitness by taking up active running, then it doesn't matter what speed they are.
Right. And I think running for health perfectly echoes that thought, because health is the primary focus, and running is only a medium to get there. Ian, the other point that I wanted to ask you was, you have, I think, a program suitably designed for a 5K race or a run. Would you want to talk a little bit about what that plan is and how many weeks does it go?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we tailor make the plan for the individual. So if somebody was to approach us and they're a complete beginner, we would say like 8 to 10 weeks, and you should be able to comfortably cover 5 kilometers. So that neatly fits in with the Fast&Up 5K. What we'll do is, when somebody approaches me to begin with, we'll do a questionnaire to learn a little bit about that person. We'll have a chat and we'll work out what they're capable of doing. They may only be capable initially of walking 30, 40 minutes 3 times a week. So we'll use that as the base point, and we start from there. So that 30 minutes will become 40, and then easy walking will become brisk walking, and then we'll bring in walk, jog, and gradually progress it from there. But what we also try to do as well, one of the biggest problems that people have when they're new to running, there's always a tendency for people to go and run on the road. They see other people doing it and they think that that's what they should do. Whereas the best place to be running is on the mud or the grass in the park. So what we try and do, we try and help to plan against getting injuries by introducing some core stretching, some running drills, a little bit of strengthening. Because if somebody's, let's say they're in their 30s or 40s and they've not done regular sport for 20 years or so, as soon as they start to run, their ankles, their knees, their lower back are going to start screaming and shouting at them.
Right.
So what we have to do is we have to build the program around that person. First, to get them a bit more flexible with plenty of stretching, and then developing the routine from there by adding little bits of core training, maybe kettlebell workouts, just to help them to be strong enough for the body to be able to run.
Sure. So I think some of the points that you mentioned obviously was there is a scaling up of the of the running, and that can happen between 8 to 10 weeks.
Yeah,
There's another aspect that you mentioned about doing a little bit of strengthening with kettlebell exercises and other exercises. Also about the flexibility part, so as to not make any runner injured. The other element that I want to pick up from you and ask you is you mentioned about the surface of running, right?
hmm,
In India, obviously, you don't have access to too many trails and parks as such. So typically, people end up running on the roads. Now, you have road, you have probably a mud trail somewhere. You
hmm,
have access to a synthetic track once in a week, and you have a lot of concrete roads in India, right?
yeah.
Uh, so
I
uh,
know. I've lived there.
yeah. So what do you think? I mean, what should a runner do? Because everyone who I talk to, maybe above the age of maybe, who has not run for the last 15, 20 years, and they want to get back, or even who wants to do a first 5K, they always ask this question that is my knee getting going to get damaged because I'm going to run, and they have this perception that it's very injury prone. So what would you say? I mean, how do you balance between the surfaces?
The first thing I would say is to get a good shoe.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's important to have a good shoe. If you have a good shoe, then I know in some areas it's very hard to find a park or a playing field or muddy ground to run on. So if it's a must to run on tarmac or concrete, if we're only talking about relatively short runs, then as long as the shoes are good
Hmm.
and we're developing the strength to help to avoid those injuries, then running on the road once or twice a week isn't a terrible thing.
Hmm.
It's preferable to run maybe once on grass, once on synthetic track, and once on the road. If somebody can do that, then it's worthwhile the effort to travel to a park to be able to run on the softer surface, because that's going to protect the knees.
Sure.
And if you look at the most common injuries of new runners, it's lower legs.
Hmm.
So it's either feet, Achilles tendon, calf, or knee. And that's
Right.
mainly because either they buy a cheap shoe or a low quality shoe,
Sure.
or they go out and they run on the road, but they don't stretch and they don't do any strength training.
Correct.
So if the program is built correctly to strengthen the body as you start to run, then that reduces the injury situation massively.
Sure. Thanks. I think we are still waiting for any questions people want to ask. Happy to take them and answer them.
Don't be
We are
shy, guys.
but we are also in the last section of the program where you actually mentioned this, that there is going to be a Fast and Up festival 5K, one of the unique such events that we organized in December last year, especially because of the COVID time, and also 5K being a very novel kind of distance. Very few races happen around the 5K distance in India. And what we did was, it was a virtual event, but a racing event, where we tried to get more and more people into running, and also had a competitive section, also had a social section where newbie runners can start, and a competitive section where we had prize money and a lot of competition out there, but still make the rules fair to everyone, because you typically would have somebody running from Delhi, somebody from Punjab, somebody from Mumbai, east of the country, south of the country. So we wanted to make sure that the rules are correct, and we have a common platform on which people can run. And we had a delighted, results which came out of it, because we had hundreds and hundreds of runners who participated, and that was the first event. And we would be having something similar in July first half, where I think a 5K, as you said, is a distance which anyone can run. Even once the lockdown restrictions are slowly removed, there'll be more freedom to run, and one can actually plug that in inside the calendar that one has, and would really set it up for distances beyond 5K later part of the year. So that would be a fantastic program, Ian, race, Ian, and I think your training program would be great for that.
Yeah, I agree. And the first edition was fantastic, and it was great for people to be able to compare themselves with others in their age group across the country.
Right.
So you may have someone that's 55 years old in Delhi, and he's heard about this chap down in Mumbai, and he's thinking, who's the best? Right. So the nature of the way the run was set up, the parameters were there to say this is where you have to run. It's got to be a road, point to point or whatever. So then people could compare themselves with others in other parts of the country. Right. So I think it's fantastic. And yeah, we have training programs that we can customize for the individual. And what I'd say briefly is now is the time to start to prepare. Sure. Even during the curfew and the lockdown, you can still do some workouts at home. It may be that you have room in the compound for doing a little bit of jogging, but you can do some core training, some other exercises in the house. Maybe you have an exercise bike. You can always use that as well, just to get the ball rolling.
Right. I think I cannot agree more with you, Ian, because the last time that we had this race, we had so much of excitement till the last day, because you had this leaderboard which happened where there were a lot of people who were competing for those spots, and you could see that the ranking kept moving up and down every day till the end of the closure of the event. But having said that, I think we will take some questions. I see Trikuti asking. Trikuti obviously is a good runner, but she has a question which would be very relevant for a lot of people who are training for the 5K. Her question is, what would be some typical speed sessions for 5K training?
Okay, well, Trikuti, as you know, is one of my trainees as well. So she's quite experienced, and she's done some good hard training sessions. So for somebody who's running, let's say 4 or 5 times a week, we do 2 or 3 speed sessions. One of them may be on the track doing 200, 300 meter repetitions. Another may be a fartlek session where we run 2 minutes hard, 1 minute easy by 10 or 12 repetitions. And we'd also do a tempo run. So the tempo run, we start at 2 or 3 kilometers and gradually build it up. Maybe we'll go to 6 or 7 kilometers maximum, just to get the body used to running at a high intensity for a certain amount of time. For beginners, we would do less. So for beginners, they would maybe do 30 seconds fast, 30 seconds walk with 10 repetitions.
Perfect. That's great insights from you, Ian. The next question is from Tribhuvan, who is, well, I would like to add one more perspective to it. 5K race, do you typically have even splits, or you try to be faster at the end of the race? And if you have an even split, how do you manage that?
So the way that I like to see people approach a 5 kilometer run is that you'll run an even pace for the first 3 to 3.5 kilometers, and then pick up a little bit in the last 1,500 meters. So there's a big tendency with 5 kilometers, people will start too fast because they think, oh, it's only like 5K, 3 miles. And they'll think that they can't burn out. Well, if they start too fast, they can burn out. And then you get positive splits, which isn't the ideal way. So I like runners to keep a nice, even, fast pace for the first 3 to 4 kilometers, and then pick it up at the end for the last few minutes of running.
Yeah, I mean, that's very sane advice, right? Because I have seen a lot of people, be it a 5K race, tend to burn out in the last 2 kilometers, because you have actually run very fast, and even a 5-second pace increase can actually hamper you in the last 2 kilometers, and you really learn it by real experience, right? Once the race is done.
It's true, and the big danger, especially for less experienced runners, is they get carried away at the beginning, and they
Yeah,
go too fast, and then they end up walking.
correct.
So it's very important to learn your own levels.
Sure. Uh, So before I conclude, I just want to remind everyone that Fast&Up would come back with the dates of the festival 5K soon. We would open registrations anytime end of the month or so, and it's a great time to look at running and run that 5K. It need not be just the runners who are actively running, but we would encourage a lot of people who are aspiring to uh, you know uh, uh, do a 5K, do a 3K, do that, and it'll be a fun event this time. We would obviously be better. We have more people out there, and I think this can typically become a movement across the country. The 5K, plan. Uh, I think we have a young. Before I finally conclude, I just want to take one last question. I think this is from Ashwin George, who is a young athlete from Kerala, and he wants to ask, does swimming help in recovery and does it help endurance? So you want to answer that, Ian?
Yeah, sure. Swimming is a fantastic boost to training. It's very good as a recovery after a hard training session. And if you do your swimming sessions properly, then it also helps to boost your endurance. So I'm a big fan of cross training. I mean, a lot of my runners also cycle. And if they have swimming pools within close proximity to their homes, then I encourage them to swim as well. It's a really good way. It's not trying to get people into triathlon necessarily, although some people maybe graduate to there, but it also helps to balance the training load, because swimming, there's no impact. So you're giving your legs a little bit of a rest.
Right.
So it's a good aerobic session.
Right. Perfect. Thanks, Ian. I can't resist taking one more question because
No
it comes
problem.
from
We can
Rahul.
carry on.
It comes from Rahul Shukla, and Rahul is himself a very fast,
I know
young,
him.
I would say, young runner, a very fast runner.
Yeah.
But obviously, running a full marathon is something that he wants to check and ask you what is the perfect age to start a full marathon, because he fears probably an injury can creep in. So, what are your thoughts? He's maybe early 20s.
You know, I always try to encourage younger runners to explore their full potential at 5 and 10K.
Mm.
If a runner has aspirations to represent their country,
Mm-hmm.
then they shouldn't be in a rush to run a full marathon.
Mm-hmm.
I know Rahul's a decent runner, but I'm not sure exactly what his times are. But if he has ambition to run for India, then there's no rush to move up to the marathon.
Right.
You need to, if you're planning or aiming to run at international level, then you need to get your 5 and 10K times into that bracket before moving up to the full marathon.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say between 25 and 30 is a good time to put your toes in the water with your first marathon.
Mm-hmm.
There's no need to be doing it earlier than that.
So I think with amateur runners, it's also the temptation of because your road races typically are the half marathons, the full marathons, where there is more prize money and more recognition out there, right? And you have
Yeah.
hardly any shorter distances for the very serious amateurs. But I think it's a very valid point, and I still feel that if you look at elites across the globe, they tend to perfect the shorter distances first and
Sure.
then go up to the longer distances, and that's the way to go.
If you look at the majority of world record holders in the marathon,
Mm-hmm.
if you go back to Paul Turgat, Patrick Macau, Kimeto, Bekele, Gebri Selassie, Kipchoge, all of these guys have been fantastic track runners.
Mm.
They've been world class at 5K, 10K on the track before moving up to half marathon and then eventually marathon. So if
Right.
you look at the way the world's best do it, that should really be the template for aspiring young runners from India as well.
Great. So thank you, Ian. I think we have come to the end of the session. I think we have had a very nice session. In fact, It was perfect meeting you after a time of 6 to 7 months. Even I cannot stop. I am really eager to try out my luck in the Fast&Up 5K festival run because it was amazing experience last time around. I'm sure people would be looking forward to it. And Ian, I would really love a lot of your trainees to be part of that as well and spread the message around.
Absolutely,
Thank
for
you.
sure. At the moment, we're looking at our next 2 to 3 month block being mainly 5K training. So I'll be encouraging everybody to take part in this event. And of course, if anyone else out there is interested in having a tailor-made training program, they can always contact me through Facebook.
So thank you so much, and all of you viewers, thank you for being there. And stay safe, stay masked if at all you go out. Have a safe distance out there, and also have a nice weekend out there. Thank you so much.
Cheers. Take care.
Bye bye.